All right. I think that was it.
We're live and in color.
Okay, sorry, I've just lost my page. Where? Oh, that's right. There we go. Okay, 6 o'clock, and welcome to the January 24th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Open to public comments. Do you have any public comments? Okay. Moving on to announcements and community calendar. Buc-ee's is now open for breakfast and lunch, and they're located in the former Ray's Marina Sales and Showroom building. There's ample parking on the site, so congratulations, and they're open today.
Yeah, we had burgers Friday, and they were very, very good.
Excellent.
And
There you
somebody
go.
else I know had breakfast, and it was excellent.
Okay, well, welcome. All right, new business. First item, resignation of Ryan Thibault from the Heritage Commission, received on January 6, 2022.
Yes, by email. Short and to the point. He wrote, effective today, I'm resigning from the Heritage Commission due to other commitments, many things going on. I just do not have the time needed to dedicate to this commission. It's not fair to the town or other members. It is with deep regret I submit my resignation. Ryan Thibault.
I'll make a motion to accept his resignation and want to thank him.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes. All right, next item, appointment of Sharon Buttrick as the alternate to the Conservation Commission.
Yes, Sharon, again, she, by email, she sent us a notice of her intention that she would like to become a member of the Conservation Commission. I ran it by the acting chairs of the committee. They wholeheartedly supported it. Apparently Sharon is a known quantity to them, has been involved in a number of things, and they support it.
You guys all set with it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to appoint Sharon Buttrick as an alternate to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And if you could just have everyone sign that, and then I'll give that to the town clerk for, of course Sharon has to be sworn in, so I have to give it to the town clerk tomorrow morning. And I also had late today another request for the Conservation Commission, so a gentleman from Milton Mills, I believe, and I'll be bringing that up in the, I told him it would be the February 7th meeting, but that would be on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, item 3, Jared Vartanian from Bashan and Kolke, annual audit contract. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Hopefully.
You have Jarrett's
Yeah.
information in your packets.
Okay.
Do you guys want me to stand up?
Yes, if you could at the microphone.
Okay, thank you for having me. So Chris had reached out to me. My name's Jared Vartanian. I'm a shareholder of Vashon Kluke. We're a local CPA firm that specializes in audits of New Hampshire municipalities. We previously worked with the town of Milton for several years, up through 2015. I didn't directly work on it, but I was around at the firm when we were doing the audit, and it was a good relationship, and I believe we were told at the time there was a change of management, and they had people, they had connections they knew, and so they switched us out, and I believe the firm that was performing it, they no longer...
I think due to staffing issues,
They've
they had
cut
to look
down,
at their
yeah.
client base top to bottom, and we were the probably one of the smaller fish, so they,
So and so
we got
for our firm, I don't look at this as a small fish, we do, collectively municipalities, probably over 100, annual audits, municipalities, water districts, school districts, cities, counties, towns, that Milton would probably be like the average size of our client base. But we do have some people who are previously familiar with the town. We also have a lot of new people since then over that time. So we've been fortunate enough during COVID actually where we've grown up and added people, and a lot of it's just because there's a lot of people leaving, and so we I guess our firm's history was in New Hampshire audits. The founders of the firm are no longer with the firm, but they had started at DRA. DRA used to actually do municipal audits in the late 70s, early 80s. They changed it where they required municipalities to actually start having independent audits, and when they did that, the two founders of our firm, it broke off and said they started a firm, and so that's kind of how we're rooted in governance. I had passed along to Chris just the standard engagement letter. It has changed, so those update and changes, and as if you guys are familiar at all with governmental accounting standards, there's a lot of changes every year. And I guess with that, I have to take any questions you guys have about the firm, about municipal audits, anything in general specific to your town. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't really,
I don't, I don't know what that
it's kinda-
entails, I
yeah,
guess.
I mean, it's
on
kind
my end.
I mean, you,
well, I can tell you from when this item came up, and Melanson Heath did give us a good amount of notice. To a person, both Michelle, Kathy Wallingford, others that had dealt with, including Joanne Smith, assisting us in the finance office, all said, you need to pick up the phone and call these people. It was only due to, like you say, a change in management. Several town administrators ago had a preference who they wanted to work for, and that, or with, I should say. And that's the only thing that was necessitated the change. They had done a fine job, an outstanding job prior to that, and they thought that this would be the smoothest transition for the town. One, because they knew the town and had prior experience.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate you taking us back.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. I guess I could say to the board, the most important thing you want to get from the audit, because the financial statements, there's so many standards that they're muddled, they're difficult to read, they don't assimilate well to what you're dealing with. Really, the DRA forms have more significance almost to the meaning of what you're dealing with. But what you want is, you want to know when we're issuing our reports on controls, any recommendations, when you see the audit, you just want to know that the information you're getting on a weekly, monthly, annual basis is accurate, and you're making decisions on information that's accurate, because there's a lot of times in governments where there's so much entries, and it's almost like the auditor has a different set of books than the town, and you're making decisions thinking you have fund balance of X and you really don't, or you have more or less, and you're making, and so really what you want to know when we come in and we do an audit and we issue a final report is this information reliable? Like, when we're making decisions for the town, is this accurate? You'd be surprised how often it's not. And so, that would be the goal is, it's not to be a painful process, but it's to really just for the board, the audit's addressed to the board, and so that the board can make the decisions for the town, and you want to have accurate information. So you want to hear from us, like, okay, there's different levels of accurate we're going to give a handful of entries, but if it's just for the GASB stuff, that's not really a big deal, because you're not going to make decisions on full accrual basis accounting where you have complicated actuarial evaluations. What you want to know is your MS 535 or your general fund, is this accurate? Like, are we getting good information to make decisions?
20 years ago, when I sat in your seats, I believe it was Sanders and Plozak came in at that time. And I remember there were some recommendations that were hard for various departments and committees to agree to or get in step with. One of them was, for instance, back then, senior meals was its own checking account. And the person who headed up senior meals they recommended that all those independent, they weren't really revolving accounts, they were town functions that were run with their own little separate checking account, to make sure that there wasn't any misspending in those or misappropriation, that they just bring those checking accounts in and that they quickly go through them. And, you know, we got some flack, some feedback. But luckily, the other selectmen that I served with said, no, if this is the recommendation, if these people are gonna stand up and certify our operations, then we need to do what they need to or provide them with the information that they need to have. And so I think, I see it as a two-way street, that we're looking for them for some confidence that we are following good managerial practices with respect to finances and funds and money and et cetera. But at the same time, I think they also expect that we're gonna play ball and do those things that lead to year after year good reviews, good actuals, good, if you will, audits. So I see it as a two-way street.
I agree. A lot of times I tell our clients is, if it's bad for you, it's bad for us.
Mhm.
If it's hard work for you, it's really hard work for us. So obviously in a perfect world, it's easy audit and it's easy on both ends, but you know, usually it's somewhere in the middle for governments, but yeah, it definitely goes both ways, as Chris said.
Is there like a comparison analysis between SB2 towns that kind of lets us see where we are on the average, above, below? Is there a certain standard that's
There's
should be
really
making?
not, but it's like if there's certain information you wanted to know, we could pull stuff together. Like we've done that where it's like, it really just depends, because it's really, you know, whatever the town or the board's desire is. Some run very lean and some run in excess every year and give it back, but they want the cushion. It's really just, it depends on each town, you know what I mean? And it's like whether you want to finance because it's cheap, it might get more expensive, or whether you want to pay for it now. It's really what the board desires that way, or how they want to run it, you know. As far as like fund balance comparisons or something like that for towns in your bracket, yeah, we could run like some type of analysis if that was desired, you know. But again, it really depends on, you know, I guess the governance, how you choose to fund in the town, you know. And I have not worked with the town, so I wouldn't know off my head where you fall, but like, you know, after we would do an audit, we'd have a really good idea of where you would fall.
So, and when are you starting?
We'd have to, we haven't officially been contracted yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so what you have in it is a referral letter, and if the board feels confident in their scope of services and skill set, that I think you'd grant me the authority to enter and sign into that contract. It'd be the easiest thing.
Yeah, no, I'm all set. I mean, he speaks well. He's got over 100 communities, and you know, we need our audit done. So I appreciate you helping us out.
I guess clarification, is it 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Oh, so it's, okay, so I had the 2021 in the engagement letter. I'll need to
No,
revise.
you're right. No, it's
Did they complete 2020's audit?
very early. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got the major part of the audit, what we are missing at this point is what they call letter of, the term that you,
Management discussion?
there you go.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
MD&A, okay. Yep,
That's
okay.
the only thing that I'm missing. So no, you're right. It would be for 21.
Okay, that's good, because I know it sounds, for your end, it's not a huge deal. For our end, they changed standards going into 21, so it'd be two different
Yep.
letters. That's when you choose auditing,
Yeah, and
the rules and details you gotta deal with. So.
Right. And it's
Just
like
wanted
when
to
I
confirm.
came here in April, I think the letter authorizing Lance and Heath to do it still hadn't even been signed
Okay.
by March or April this year, and that was for 2020. So I'm trying to stay one step ahead of it. I don't like things like that coming out of the woods at
Yeah.
the last minute. So that was the reason that I reached out to you. We've been talking off and on since early December, but due to COVID and your agenda, things of that nature, we just kept, well, it wasn't imperative that he be here, let's just say January 4th. We could have hired him as late as June, but then
Yeah. I
The
mean,
longer we
I'd
wait,
imagine
the
you'd
harder
wanna
it's gonna
it
get.
going as soon as
Right.
possible. We don't have to, I mean, you can choose to wait till the other audit, depending on how long it's gonna finalize, but, you know, we don't have to wait necessarily.
Well, I know at this point, Melanson Heath can't handle it, so,
Yeah.
anything to
I
do
know,
with
and
21.
It's,
so,
there's a lot of,
Yeah.
there's a lot of backup out there.
Yep.
So, but we wouldn't take on, you know, I mean, I stopped the water a little, cause we took on a lot of clients on our end, and I kept adding people, and I had to get them up to speed, and so, but, you know, for the right opportunities, we're taking them on, and we're not gonna push it out, otherwise it wouldn't be worth you hiring us. It wouldn't be worth it to push you out and have an audit next year, for this year, past year.
And then wouldn't do us any good. So,
Exactly, that's,
Yeah.
you know, and it is historical, exactly, it's historical information, so sometimes,
and there is a funding line in the contract, similar to what we had last year. And the budget that we did put together under the contracts line, their name actually appears now as the contract provider, at least from a tentative perspective. So we've done everything needed to do within the budget to have them folded into our operations.
Was there a change in that line as
No,
well?
I just
Financial
literally
year,
went
just-
with last year's, and
Okay.
because we hadn't, in depth, I had no other reason to change the contract.
Okay,
So, and as I've said, with other lines, if there needs to be adjustments, we will just make those adjustments.
Mhm.
all right.
Motion?
Like I said, I'm fine with it. So are you guys fine with it?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion to hire Vashon and Kluge for the annual audit contract for 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
guys,
you.
thanks for your time.
So I'll pull those documents up
Sure.
and process them through tomorrow, and if there's any,
Start talking
Edits or
about
changes.
scheduling.
yeah,
Could do it
exactly.
Sooner before later.
Yeah,
'Cause we
no.
still have some good availability.
Yep. No, I appreciate you coming all the way over.
No problem.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next item, Mr. Thomas Q, State of Refuse Disposal in New Hampshire. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Town Administrator. By the way, thank you for telling me where the town hall was. I was standing in the lobby of it. So, I work for Casella Waste. I'm the Director of Landfill Development. Again, my name is Tom Q, last name C-U-E. I sent some talking points. I don't know if anybody has them.
I did a photocopy.
Everybody has them?
Yep.
All right. So just look at them on your own. I'm not going to.
It was pasted into the,
Okay, so the reason we're doing that this year, the reason I'm doing this year, I'm actually going to every community in the state of New Hampshire, and there are considerable communities in the state of New Hampshire, is because this year in the legislature, in the House, they're bringing up a number of bills that affect solid waste. And we believe that people need to understand what is actually going on. The company I work for, Casella, we have a landfill in North Country, NCES, North Country Environmental Services. There are only two other landfills, one in Rochester, one in Berlin, Cadbury and Turnkey. They are accepting maximum waste right now. As much as they permit it, they can every day. So when our landfill, which is booked to close end of 25, beginning of 26, which is around the corner in the waste world, there are over 150 communities in the state that are not gonna have a waste disposal, a place to dispose their waste. We are trying to site a landfill in Dalton, we're in the middle of it. This is not that discussion, it's just so you understand why we're doing it. There are, pros and cons. Your senator is Jeb Bradley. He's kind of in our corner, which is nice to have. We want everybody to just do the math. If you look at the talking points, a lot of it, part of it has to do with Dalton, the rest has to do with the actual state of waste. There are, 2020, we did over 300,000 tons of waste we took it's in Bethlehem, in the landfill. That's gonna stop. It's just gonna come to a stop. and there are no plans to replace it, and no plans, and the other two major landfills are at capacity. So, that is why we tried, or we're attempting to site a landfill. We're trying to go one at Dalton, it's right up by Bethlehem. You're going to hear, contrary, back and forth. I actually represent a publicly traded company. I can't lie to you, I have to tell you the truth, as much as I'd like to make it sound better. The truth is that there will not be enough disposal space, and your options are limited. They are basically leaving the state with it, because there's nothing in the state. So the cost to the taxpayers would rise considerably. And the whole idea of landfills and the carbon footprint and all that, well, you're gonna be doubling the number of trucks running across the state, trying to get out of state, going to trains, getting rid of it. And then the other end of that is, say you're going to Ohio or Pennsylvania, eventually they're gonna say, all right, we've had enough. So what do you do then? Just go further west, the cost just keeps going up. New Hampshire's always been kind of a self-contained state. We'd like to put the landfill in the state. We have to have the environmentally sound, DES has to sign off on every step of it. We've been working at the permitting for over 2 years on it. And we just think it's a common sense. I don't know if it's the term is solution, because there's more that can be done. I think the state, right now, New Hampshire is horrendously bad recycling. I think the cost for smaller communities to recycle isn't worth it, they'll just bury it, and a number of towns still, we know that. We would include with the Dalton property, again, it's a MRF, Material Recovery Facility in Manchester. So basically, you could take your recyclables to us, single stream, we'll separate them, we'll do it right, and we'll get the recycling going. Because right now, about 80% of your recycling goes to Massachusetts, and they have to get to Massachusetts. And so we would keep it in state, and that would be part of the deal that we would put on the table. We've already agreed to it with the state, that if we do get cited in Dalton, we will build the MRF, so they can have that. And that can do nothing but expedite recycling and, well, it'll eliminate a lot of problems. So everybody has a copy of all the talking points. What's gonna happen is, I'm probably gonna write another letter to you. Very nice to respond to me, thank you. And ask for your support somewhere down the line. Do your own research, read what I wrote, it's all very true, it's a little scary. And I will ask you to either call or write a letter to your senator and just tell them. Say, look, let them continue to try, you don't have to commit to anything, you can just say, let them continue to try to site a landfill. The state actually needs some place to dispose of its wastes, all right? And so this was kind of a prep, but I thought that the why we're putting in a landfill, or we're trying to put in a landfill, is really important right now, because all the other questions will be answered ad nauseum eventually, I'm sure. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions. I kind of blindsided you with most of this, I guess. So, do you? Any questions at all?
Just curious, how many acres is in Dalton that you'll
Well, the property is 1,300 acres, but we're gonna use 1/5 of that. We'll probably use about 300 acres total, maybe even a little less. That is being negotiated, okay? A couple of the, the antis, people that don't want it, it's in this pristine forest, and we're gonna ruin the lake. And where we're putting it, the first part of the landfill is a quarry. There's an old asphalt plant there. They're just okayed a drag strip, which is kind of cool, I think, and there's a firing range there. So not quite, that picture they're drawing. I can tell you that the landfill will not be seen by the lake. There is a buffer there, they won't see it. There is a part at the end in about 20 years where we'll get to the last section of the landfill, and you will be able to see the landfill, that part of it. But that could be negotiated, they can plant whatever they need to plant to block it. They may not even go to that part if that's what, the state decides that, well, you can go up to there, then you have to stop, and that would be okay too, I guess. But we also, so that the lake is right there, and Forest Lake, and we did meet with the state parks, and we volunteered, because it's not always as clean, you know, I mean, it just happens, a stagnant piece of water, better water, that we offered to pay for a maintenance system for the water, that we would scrub the water and recycle it back into the lake, which, I mean, would be terrific, water would be cleaner than it ever was. So not only aren't we going to contaminate anything, we're gonna actually fix a couple of things. So, I mean, that's our game plan. So I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything now, just read about it. You're gonna hear other sides of it. My contact information you have a question, I'll be happy to answer any of them, all right? So I do appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
That's
are
it.
there,
That's
like,
it.
we have a rail siding right next to our former landfill and our current transfer station.
Right.
Are there any options open to us to, let's say, work with New Hampshire North Coast, put in a siding and have our trash hauled away
Oh, yeah.
by rail car?
Oh, yeah, of course, there's always that option. They would have to haul it out of state. It's kind of a cost.
Mhm.
When you leave the state, you really are at the mercy of whomever you're
Mhm.
talking to. None of them are hurting for tonnage. Everybody's got plenty of tonnage,
Right.
so they get to be, I said, if you called Cadbury or Rochester, turnkey, you would get one of two answers, no, if we could come there, or, well, we can squeeze you in, but it would be probably twice the price you're paying right now. And it would, if they're squeezing you in, it's not a permanent fix. You know, you want security, you want the next 15 years, 20 years, whatever, you
Right.
know, that we have a place to go with our waste. And so,
Well, I think too, I mean, and this is something to bring up to Jeb, but, you know, we ought to stop trash coming from out of state into New Hampshire.
right,
You know, and that would prolong what we have.
absolutely would.
But you see, you know, trucks all day long coming from Massachusetts and New York and Connecticut and, you know, coming into Turnkey to,
Turnkey is a large amount of out-of-state. They're so big that they can handle the requests they have from in-state, but they're taking a lot. I'll speak for my company, Casella, we're at 94% New Hampshire waste. We have 6% from out-of-state. So we're doing our part. And, yeah, that's it. There is a considerable amount. In fact, they had landfill hearings at the Senate, and they discussed the amount of waste, but you can't say no, what, traffic rules, what is it?
Interstate commerce
Thank
rules
you.
prevent
Interstate
you
commerce
from
rules.
saying no to refuse from
You
Massachusetts.
can't say no.
You can't charge them
So
a fee to come into the state.
do you want to just make it unreasonable for them to come, which would be my suggestion. Just, you know, get the prices so high that they'll figure out something else to put it on a train and send it to Ohio with everybody else. Anything else?
all right, well, thank you for,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, guys.
Okay, next item, department head reports.
No,
Two
I had a
department
long
heads?
list of things to do today, and that didn't make it to the top.
Okay,
I'm gonna respectively decline today.
Well, I can fill in for you, Nick.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. My report for January 24th, 2022. The Public Works Department has plowed and sanded for 7 events so far this year. We've cleared and maintained sidewalks and parking lots. We're not plowing and treating roads and sidewalks. We've done maintenance on all equipment and washed salt from them. During this month, we've had truck 1 break down twice. The first was a hydraulic hose and the second was the sander spreader. Truck 2 was down once with a starter needing to be replaced. Truck 3 was down 3 times, first a hydraulic hose, second the starter, and third power steering lines. The 1-ton was down once with the transmission pan needing to be replaced, and then we had cutting edges on all 4 dump trucks that needed to be replaced this month. The Dawson Street drainage project update. Today I visited the site and they were putting in, or preparing to put in the last catch basin on Silver Street by number 8 Silver Street. The plan is to put the final culvert up to the back of the wood lot there and put the head wall in. And that should be done by the end of this week. And then myself and a representative from Earth will be walking, doing a site walk. We're gonna make a list, checklist of things that need to be done now. Some things that are gonna probably need to be done in the spring, and then before they come back to do any work in the spring, we'll have another site walk and make another checklist of anything that may have failed or that needs to be repaired or taken care of before we finish the final product, and that will be in the spring when the weather warms up. Because the final paving won't be done until spring.
Yeah.
We've elected to, I requested to let it sit through the winter to get any settlement, anything we can get out of it, and then I think compaction will be a lot better come spring with traffic and the frost and the thaw and that type of stuff, so, that's what's happening there. And then later on, when we talk about some warrant articles, I have some other information.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You want this?
Sure.
Did you want me to read into the record the rec department report?
Yes, please.
All right. From the recreation department, I'm just gonna swing this over. Someone hear me? The 2021 holiday programs were very successful, and thanks to the many residents and friends of recreation who stepped up and generously donated in helping those in need in our community. The senior Thanksgiving luncheon and Christmas luncheon were very well attended. At the Christmas luncheon, we had 3 Shades of Grey, a local band, play some old-time music for their listening pleasure. There was no cost to this program for them, as a very generous donor treated them to both luncheons and to the music. Toys for Kids program was able to donate to over 40 children in various families both toys and clothing, helping to alleviate some stress for our parents. The Recreation Department partnered again this year with a caravan of toys from the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and Marine Toys for Tots program, and new this year, Snowden Realty. Bill Snowden is a resident who donated a tremendous amount of toys to our program this year. We also want to thank all the generous residents who stopped by to drop off toys so every family in need could get a little extra help for the holidays. Senior drop-off Christmas luncheon 2 days before Christmas. 38 of our senior citizens were delivered a homemade lasagna dinner with rolls, salad, dessert, along with a small Secret Santa gift from a very generous resident. There were smiles all around. It was nice to touch base with some of the seniors who don't typically attend our senior programs. Breakfast for Santa was a lot of fun, but not as well attended as years past. Those who did attend were treated to a pancake breakfast with bacon, eggs, sausage, fruit, and drinks. Santa stopped by to say hi to everyone, and everyone wanting a photo op with him was given the chance to make some family photos. Santa listened with open ears as the children told him that they were hoping for this Christmas holiday. The last line has been deleted due to Santa's request. 2021 basketball program. We're off to a good start with this year's basketball program. This year we again are offering the program free to any child who wants to play, as we are keeping the program in-house and are not traveling to other gyms. There is a possibility that we will host some other teams before the season is over. We will all have to wait and see how the rest of the season goes with the pandemic. Winter Carnival Family Fishing Derby. This year we will be holding our annual Winter Carnival Family Fishing Derby on Sunday, February 13th. Flyer will be coming out shortly. The Moose Lodge will be holding some of their usual activities. However, our department will not be hosting any inside activities this year, due in part to the low turnout of other inside hosted activities. I think that's a direct reflection on COVID, not necessarily their activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a picture of Santa with the children?
There are multiple pictures of Santa with the children
Like to see
floating
that.
around town, yes.
Well, thank
That's
you
what
to
I
all
hear.
those who contributed and donated. Sounds like it was an amazing time for
It
a
was.
lot of the families in town. Okay.
And thanks to the rec director and the
Yes.
assistant for their hard work and
It's amazing all the things that
all the,
they do as a department, yeah.
yeah, just two of them, and
Yep.
you see during Christmas they'll be down there shuffling everything around. I mean, Diana was like unbelievable, you know, getting all the toys to where they needed to go to what families, and it was just a fine lubed machine doing its thing down there. So I just want to thank them both.
Great.
So
Do you want to read into the record this?
Sure. You want me to read it?
You or I can. It's the police department's report.
You can go ahead.
All right.
Fine job there.
Milton Police Department, the December-January activity report. We're happy to say that we are starting 2022 off with the department only being down one full-time position. We will attempt to fill this position in the first quarter of '22. Sergeant Hebert has finished field training and is out on solo patrol. Officer Bratchert is on pace to complete his field training program in mid-March, and then he will also be out on solo patrol. Once we have all officers out of the field training program, we'll have 7 positions, including the chief, which will be available to cover calls and patrol our community. This will allow the department to again be more proactive and hopefully offer some of the services we had cut back on last year due to staffing levels. We have received the town's first hybrid vehicle, a 2021 Ford Police Interceptor utility. This cruiser is currently out on patrol and will soon be lettered. We're still getting used to the vehicle as it has some very different features compared to the other V6 cruisers in our current fleet. We know that some residents will be happy about the purchase of the hybrid cruiser, and we will be evaluating whether or not this type of cruiser is cost effective and appropriate for the town of Milton prior to the renewal of the lease and replacement of the 3 frontline cruisers. We have seen an increase in fraud cases and negligent driving cases over the last month. We have received an increasing number of credit and check fraud cases. We are asking residents to keep a close eye on your accounts and watch for suspicious purchases or amounts coming out of your checking account. Residents should also take advantage of the yearly free credit report and review this to make sure there are no fraudulent accounts open in their names. With winter months comes snow and ice. We are seeing an increase this year over last year on negligent driving (Jessica law) cases. We are reminding residents that you are required to clean off all of the snow and ice off your vehicle prior to driving the vehicle upon any public roadway. If you are caught with snow and ice on your vehicle, you can be issued a citation for negligent driving, and the fines start at $310 for the first offense. We will be participating in the Special Olympics Winnie Dip again this year. Multiple officers are fundraising for Special Olympics. We will be jumping in the lake in March. Good luck to them.
Fun. All right. Thank you.
Chief, and maybe it's not part of his report, but he also did send along a memo. He'd like the board to waive the enforcement temporarily of the town ordinance regarding the daily closing of the Parks and Recs area in Milton, New Hampshire. The ordinance is can be found with the town clerk. Basically, it currently reads, no person shall enter or remain into all town parks and recreation areas unless otherwise authorized in writing by the Board of Selectmen during the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. Any persons found on such premises in violation of this ordinance shall be guilty of a violation. Because we've agreed to keep the gate open for snowmobiling and ice fishing at the town beach, it would require you to make a motion to amend this to, let's see, I would request that they state in the motion that the waiver is not for long-term parking or for camping or sleeping in the parking lot or property. And I'm not sure when.
And when does this go to?
That is a good question. I would say
April 1st?
ice out.
April 1st? April 1st?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Motion so said, from now, or from now to April 1st.
Okay.
As Chris stated the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, hold on one second.
Ice fishing season's over the last day of March. And they have 3 days after that to remove their equipment from the lake.
Last day of March.
That would be April 3rd.
Third, you're right.
April 3rd would be the day that all stuff has to be out.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey,
that
good,
makes
good
sense.
heads up, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll change it to,
April 3rd.
yeah, do I have to recall
No.
my, all right, so just change it to April 3rd.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And I see something here from the Milton Free Public Library that just,
Yeah, she sent it and I must have pasted it into your report.
would you like me to just read that, or, okay, well, without, looks like she has like a collection. But I'll just read the part up the bottom.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this is from the Milton Free Public Library report. We started allowing people upstairs in August. Since then, we have had 104 people use the upstairs. We cleaned up our patron files in December. We have 813 active patrons, of whom the 194 are interlibrary loan library patrons. This year, we had 79 new patrons, 21 of which were I don't know what that is. Something library, 3 libraries. Roman numeral 3? I don't know. It looks like a Roman numeral 3, but we had 16 entries in our gingerbread contest. Emerson Blasek won the family entry. Olivia, she the best child, and Ariana Baldrian won best individual entry. Sorry if I said that wrong. And she said she participated in a co-op meeting in Madbury in December, and she has 2 Zoom meetings with the state library, 1 to review the annual reporting system, and 1 was a monthly director's call. So, do you have any other reports?
Do not.
Okay. So, I just wanted to share that, having an opportunity to hear from the director, the department heads, was definitely something requested from the residents. So I think those that have been able to participate in that. And so I just hope that we can continue hearing from the department heads. I think the communication is really important to the residents. So thank you for doing that. All right, next item, appointment of assistant Fire Chief Tyler Tajas as the E911 liaison.
I gave him a copy of it.
Okay.
So essentially, it's a paperwork procedure, if you will. What you'd be doing is granting me authority to have the state put Tyler Tajas as the E911 data operations liaison. Currently, we only have one chief, Marik. We used to have,
Devin Tejo
Right.
was the primary. He took care of all of that. That was part of the assistant chief's responsibilities. Tyler is willing to take that over now that he's assumed the role of assistant chief in Devin's place. So it's just an official appointment form for the state.
Yep.
And basically, it's the local liaison to the state 911 system as far as new construction addresses and that type of stuff.
Nice.
Okay.
You guys all set?
Yeah.
Set? Okay. So I'll make a motion to appoint Assistant Fire Chief Tyler Tajas as the E911 liaison, and I just want to thank him for his services and congratulate him to where he is now.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 7, ambulance revolving fund, request to transfer funding.
Did I get a copy of the memo? I have another one here.
yeah, I gave everybody brightly colored, yep.
Bunch of sheets in the back too.
Okay. Thank you.
If you want to take this, signed, sealed, and delivered. Yep. Just, if you could scan a copy and send it back to me.
I will do that.
Thanks. So part of the reason the chief's bringing this up is, if you will, not directly to my urging, but from the multiple discussions we've had. The 2009 town meeting, Article 25, talked about how, yes, the revolving fund could be accessed to keep the ambulance moving in service, growing, even staffed, I believe. And, but it also said that the board was in charge of moving those monies. You have been approving it on a weekly basis when I think payroll's been signed, but I thought that this needed a more summary account so you could see how those things were being handled or this money was being moved around, just for clarity purposes. Protect not only the department head, but yourselves to be more in compliance with how the warrant article was worded. That's all.
So obviously, as you know, one of the goals, and a lot of this we reiterated from previous discussions that we've had, one of the goals has been retaining enough money annually so that we can purchase the ambulance out of it. And I've been communicating for the past several years with the budget committee and the selectmen that we're going to a point where we're not bringing in enough versus the expenses. So if you look at this little chart right here, it has how much was spent each quarter out of the revolving account and what the balance was. So if you look at the beginning of the year, there's a balance of $104,000. And if we transfer the last quarter's worth of expenses, there'll be a balance of about $3,000. So that's due to a net difference in expenses versus income of about $100,000. So at one point we were creeping up $30,000-$40,000 a year as far as revenue. And the last 2 years with COVID, it's died way down. So this year we brought in about $185,000. So instead of expenses continue to rise that whole entire time. So we're kind of at this point, which I've been trying my hardest to reiterate every single time we have a budget meeting or this comes up in discussion. So if you look at the fourth quarter of last year, you see $27,000 was transferred. That's because $40,000 was applied to the part-time budget line at the end of the year. So payroll is challenging where there's several lines that we're charging people to work on the ambulance. We have the part-time budget line in the fire department, and then the balance goes to the revolving fund. So what I've been doing at the end of the year is filling out the remainder of the fire department budget and saving the revolving account. This year, obviously, there's nothing left in the fire department budget. So Chris and I had a discussion about whether we wanted to preserve that money in the revolving account or deplete it. If we preserve the money in the revolving account, we can charge the fire department budget, but it'll overexpend the fire department budget. So we wanted to have the discussion, put it back in your hands and see which direction you guys wanted to go.
I would personally recommend over expending the fire department budget, that way it gives everybody a clear understanding where you're supposed to be.
Correct.
That would be my recommendation. Then that way, you know, like the budget committee chairman's been saying for years, he wants to see an accurate budget that will give him and the rest of the budget committee an accurate budget to look at.
I agree with you 100%. I'm glad we're having this discussion because historically we've balanced it and figured it out, like hit it, basically overexpended. We spent more in the revolving account than we were bringing in because we were trying to keep the budget where it needed to be, and that obviously hasn't done us any justice because everybody thinks, oh, it's fine, it's within the budget and the ambulance is going out and everything. But at the same time, we've been keeping the budgets in line. The revolving account's taking a hit and nobody seems to really, I don't care, I guess. But it can't go on for another year because as you can see, if we have another year where the revenue depletes and expenses continue, even something as simple as supplies this year, we spent $18,000 from the revolving account on supplies.
And historically, that has been around 10 to 12, 8 to 12,000. It varies every year, but that's a huge increase. I don't really have a great answer other than eventually we're gonna have to put more money in the budget. I think Matt's right as far as showing what it really costs. And this year, we're fortunate that there's a surplus that it can be covered with the bottom line of the town budget. So, the other thing too is that the balance of 76,000 in the revolving fund, I checked the bank account tonight. I also had a conversation with Brittany. There was some potential accounting errors that her and Joanne are working out. I think some money got put into the general fund that should have been the revolving fund. So we'll have more on that, but it's not enough to really resolve the problem. It's maybe $10,000. There's a difference between Joanne's number and my number. But we think we know what happened. The deposit slips that we were using had the wrong account number on them. So that should be resolved in the next week or so, hopefully.
No, I agree with Matt. You know, we need to be transparent about this. And, you know, we've come to this day and age where, you know, our fire departments, we just can't get, you know, on call like the old on call when people used to run to the fire station and when the beepers went off, and it just isn't there anymore, unfortunately.
No. Even when it was there was still a large percentage of the calls that weren't covered. You know what I mean? Even when you had 5 of the most dedicated people, there was still, you know, 25% of the calls that we had to call mutual aid for. So even 10 years ago when the system was working, it wasn't ever working. We hired the first full-time person in 1999 to try to start this Band-Aid. And it's been 23 years and it's still, we're doing it, we just don't have the funding to do it. You know, we're in a much better position than a lot of towns, but we just don't have the financial backing to continue it the way we're doing it.
So yeah, no, I just think this year, we just need to look at this and try to come up with a solution and see if we can take care of it.
Well, then, if I can weigh in for a second. I guess that has been my, when I first got before the budget committee, you know, we used this mantra that we were looking for an accurate budget. And so conversations with the budget committee were, well, do you want you know, just an accurate number at the end, or do you want truth in spending versus just looking at a bottom line where the money went? I mean, somewhat comical, but I can remember as a kid hearing, you know, or seeing in government paperwork, truth in lending laws, you know. So I twisted that around to truth in spending, because I don't think we're kidding ourselves if we don't accurately track where we're spending the money. In other words, what does it need to keep that ambulance going? Can we, and Nick's raising the issue, can we keep robbing this? That's a terrible word to use.
It's a very accurate word though.
But can we keep removing from a line that we had hopefully intended to just keep purchasing a new ambulance out of for labor? We're kidding ourselves, because, you know, and now we're seeing it where this year we have a warrant article where we're gonna put money into that capital reserve fund, I believe that's the way it's worded, to actually do that. So we can't be doing both things. We can't keep using it to fund for labor and hoping that it'll buy us an ambulance. It's just not gonna work out that way. And my hopes are that quarterly we would bring this number back to the board, because again, he and I discussed it, I already put it on the April agenda, that once, you know, whoever the newest selectman is, that, you know, this will be something we track, so that we know where we're going, so that come July, August, you get into that end of the third quarter, and you're getting ready to put together a budget, you can start to say, you can give me some direction and the department head's direction, this is how we want it to be set up. Do you want to put more money in fire department salaries and draw less from that account? Or do you want to keep it's really, it's your choice, so.
And if Chris's comment about the quarterly approval, if you look at the second paper and the second page of it, it says, it has the running balance and the debits and credits,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that the third quarter transfer is in there. Well, that was December's report, but basically that bottom right number, 73,000, is what's owed, that we charged the revolving account, and the revolving account will write a check back to the general fund for this fourth quarter, so that's the total amount that's owed at this point.
Yep.
And that amount might be reduced if, once, Brittany and the treasurer determine how much was placed in the wrong account, because if you look at,
I want to be clear, it's not, wasn't something
Yeah.
that Brittany did wrong or that Joanne did wrong. The bank sent us a bunch of deposit slips, and we handed them, fire department, here's yours, police department, here's yours. The bank never changed any of the deposit numbers, they all still went in the same account.
part of it's my fault,
And that
because
was-
I saw the email that said that, hey, those are not right, but then I looked at it and it said revolving account, so, mine must be right, and I didn't
You
realize
just
the
kept
number was
right,
off.
it was based upon, they all said the right thing up on the top
Yeah.
line, but the number, account numbers on the bottom did not get changed. And that
Good.
wasn't discovered for
Yeah,
6 months.
the third quarter transfer shows $66,000, but the expenses for that quarter were a little bit more because they had found a $5,000
Mm-hmm.
into the general fund versus into the revolving fund, so they credited it and deducted less.
Okay.
I'm guessing that if we do it that way, I guess the next question is how much do we wanna put to the budget versus the revolving account of that 73,000?
So let me ask a question first, Chief. Do you mind, madam?
No?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So what is it gonna take to rectify this issue so we don't have to keep robbing Peter to pay Paul? So what are you gonna give us to fix this? What are you, so it's out on the table now, we're talking about it. How can we fix it? What is your opinion on how to go about this?
We shouldn't spend more than $200,000 a year out of the revolving account,
Okay,
and we've spent $282. We should really be putting away at least $25,000. Of that 200, 25,000 should kind of be reserved for a new ambulance purchase annually.
mm-hmm,
So quick math, it's 100, basically add 100,000 to the fire department budget,
right,
part-time line.
so to rectify this issue.
Yep.
That's what you're coming up
Quick
with,
number is about 100,000,
$100,000 to onto the
which is
part-time.
why I asked for a full-time position this year, because that would alleviate a portion of it. And then the alternative, my alternative proposal was put whatever you could afford to keep the budget under default into the part-time line. So we at least are growing towards that, even if we put 20,000 into the part-time line, that's 20,000 that's not being spent from the revolving fund. If you do, we gotta creep to 100,000, but by the time we get there, it's gonna be 120, it's just gonna, but at least once we get to that point, it'll be based on wage increases, not how are we gonna swallow this pill of we need to go from no staffing to making sure there's 2 people at the station 24/7 so the ambulance can get on the road.
Right.
Which we're doing. We're having 2 people at the station 24/7, and the response times, I've shown you all the response times since we moved from, the station down here, up there with, different, like we had people covering from home for $5 an hour back in the day, and then we were paying people a stipend to stay at the station, and it continually creeps. It sounds exciting, I'll stay at the station, $10 an hour, and then they're like, yeah, I got other things to do for $10 an hour, and so then we transitioned to, when COVID happened, we used COVID money to transition into paying them, so we had a big chunk of COVID money that we used, as a bridge, but then we couldn't revert, we couldn't come out of that, cause nobody's gonna go back to covering, for $10 an hour when we had the opportunity to, and it wasn't working then anyway, even, that's why I made the transition.
Mm-hmm.
There was gaps, there was holes. So this has been 10 years of transitioning. It was started, like I said, in '99 with one full-time person, and then supplemented by on-call. And then we did the nights and weekends as the Warren article 15 years ago that Andy put up. Nights and weekends were $5 an hour. And then that transferred into every night of the week, and then we had some paid staff that was supplementing the 2 full-time people we had, and it just kept transitioning, and whatever it took, like every time there was a decline, we used the revolving fund. All right, hey, that's not working anymore, we need to go to the next step, and that's not working anymore, oh, we got the revolving fund, we'll just keep using it. And it's bridged the gap, it got us covered, it got the ambulances covered, but now we're at the point where it's too much for the revenue that is coming in. And part of the problem is the revenue's dipped over the last 2 years. If we kept, you know, an extra 10% a year, then we could have kept up with it, but it's going the other way, and it's just not working anymore. And I don't think anybody could have predicted that a 10-year increase would suddenly drop off by $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, if we kept that 50 for the last 2 years, there'd be an extra $100,000 in here still. It only takes 1 year of a sharp decline when you're spending every penny you have. And I'm not comfortable with the alternative of saying, yeah, we're not doing shifts anymore. It's just not a practical thing.
Okay.
But if you look at when determining how much money you want to transfer, I gave you a couple options. If you look at the fire department breakdown, and you go to the second line, the part-time line, there's $40,000 that wasn't spent.
Or on your part-time.
And basically that's what I would have transferred and charged to that line at the end of the year if we didn't overspend the full-time line to cover the shifts because part-time people weren't available.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we didn't spend $34,000 in vehicle maintenance, as opposed to the 14 that we had budgeted.
And as a whole, the department ended the year at 106%, so it really wasn't what you call a lot to.
No, and I went through this thinking, what could I have done differently, but other than maybe a couple purchases at the beginning of the year that were planned, if I had known that we were gonna spend $34,000 on maintenance, probably 14 or 12 of it was in November, December,
Great.
I would have planned things a little bit differently, but, and like Chris brought up at one point too, is some of those larger maintenance expenses we could have charged to the, we have a maintenance capital reserve,
Yeah.
but then I had a discussion with Chris, that's not really truth in spending either, that's still hiding it from a capital reserve. And those capital reserves, I believe the intent was for larger catastrophic failures, whereas this was all general maintenance stuff. It's just
Transmission.
a transmission,
A new
a pump,
engine.
like a pump, the pump is gonna be $10,000 plus. Or, an accident, and you have to do, well, that would be insurance, but,
No, I understand what you're saying.
if you have to paint the cab because there's corrosion, you need the truck to last 5 more years, or something like that, is
Right.
what that was intended for, not, hey, we gotta fix the AC, then that's $2,500, or, rebuild the valves in the motor. And that
So the
was $8,000.
$40,000 you're talking about, that was from your part-time line anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on this sheet.
Yeah.
It's right there,
Okay, yeah.
but look, it's offset by the full-time line went negative over 38, and this went under 30, about 38. So that's why it's only at 106,
Mm-hmm.
because those two things balance
That and
themselves
the other
out.
thing, Chris, too, is that those two kind of balance out.
Yeah.
But then there's 11,000 in retirement because it's the full-time part that went over.
Yep.
So even by hiring the full-timers, there's another 30% on top of that
Yeah.
because of the retirement system that
No,
it
the-
cost.
The 106%, you know, I know there's been a mantra in the past, you didn't exceed your top line. But there was little to no way of predicting this. Short of cutting back on staffing at the station and going, let's say, to 16 hours a day versus 24 hours a day. That's about the only way it could have been avoided. And
Yeah.
No, I would, were you gonna say something, Matt? Oh. I guess for me, I would just move the part-time line.
And fill it out.
That's for me, but it's the board's decision. But that's the way I do it.
well, it's basically done at this point.
Right.
Okay, in other words, you could say in principle, it'd be nice to move the 40,000, but it's January 24th, and technically, this is over and done with. In other words, you can't, you can encumber money for a contract, you can't go back and rework the books. I mean, as it is, still, the town as a whole only spent, and this is why I keep saying we're all in this game together, the town as a whole only spent 88% of its budget. So even though that department's budget was over 6%, other town departments were under, so we're still only at 80. So there's really, in other words, it is what it is. I don't really see the need to move money.
This just kind of reflects what we need to do for the
Correct.
future budget.
Right.
And how we need to reestablish the lines.
Just to be clear though, Chris,
Yeah.
if it is what it is and we don't do anything, that money's all coming out of the revolving account.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Okay,
The 73.
right.
Yeah.
Is that what we wanna do though?
That's not my decision.
Right, but they can make that decision.
As an engineer, looking at pure math, no.
Okay.
To me, I mean, now, if you want to if this was December 24th and we were having this discussion, yes. But it's January 24th and we're having this discussion. The
Hey.
books are technically closed, and the only way I can legally ask them to encumber money is based upon a contract. You
Mm.
can't go back and,
I did talk to Joanne and she seemed to
if Joanne says that we can,
be
then,
waiting on the results of this meeting,
okay,
is what she said the other day when I told her I was having this meeting.
good.
But that's,
Yeah.
that's not my thing.
Right,
That's why we're here.
right.
Well, I mean, I would like to use your budget. You know, I mean, if, for some reason, if she says it's, I mean, I just wish we'd have had this conversation, you know, like,
January 20th,
yeah, like December,
December 20th.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you've chatted with her
I talked to her Friday
and,
and I told her this conversation was coming and she said, because that's what we did last year, we did a journal entry at the beginning of the year, once the books weren't closed, but the expenses were done. And we did a journal entry that was originally charged to the revolving account to the fire department budget. That's why if you look at last year's expenses, there's like a $43,000 charge, and why that first quarter expense was $27,000, not the average of like $67,000, because that journal entry was done after the first of the year. But last year, we didn't come to you guys because it kept the fire department budget in the bottom, within the budget, you know what I mean? So we just did the journal entry, because there was money there for that purpose, and it didn't affect, it was still within the fire department's bottom.
I mean,
You can make the motion, and if it's legal and Joanne says we can do it, then I have no problem doing it.
yeah, because I'd like
If we can't,
to,
we're covered, we just have no balance.
well, I know, I mean, this is an issue. I mean, this is, you know, I mean, your revolving account is pretty much gonna be depleted. And, you know, I mean, we need the services, I mean, so, I mean, I'd like to try to use the money that's left in his budget. If he says that, you know, if it's, he's talked to Joanne and she says it's perfectly legal, I mean, that's what I would do, but So that'd be my motion. If our town accountant said that it's perfectly legal, I'll make the motion to move the 39,129.23 to his full-time line,
Part-time.
part-time line. Okay,
It's taken from the part-time line.
Mhm.
all right.
And you moving it into the ambulance line? Is that what you're doing?
No, just doing a journal entry for the payroll that was,
Okay.
payroll up to 30,000 that was originally allocated to the revolving fund to be reallocated to the fire department budget in the appropriate part-time line.
Okay. So that's my motion, as long as our town financial director said that it's perfectly legal. I wanna be transparent about this too. So if she
Oh,
says it's legal,
Trust me, so do I, that's why I'm standing here.
so if she says it's legal, that's my motion, so said the chief, and then we'll go from there.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay. All right, next line item, the Dawson Street Drainage Project, ARPA funding opportunity.
I guess I'll start. So, copies were in your package, but there's a letter dated December 20th, came down from the state, where the town's being awarded or has available to it $280,000 in a combination of a loan portion and principal forgiveness that can be used for the Dawson Street project. I think when you remember back, we had a workshop with Mr. Saunders, he mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have mentioned 230, 240, somewhere around. So, made a few phone calls, they pointed me to, hey, we sent a letter to Pat, you were copied on it. I just thought it was a courtesy letter to Pat, so I never really focused on it much, went back, opened it up. Sure enough, got on the phone with Deborah Loisel last week. She's handling this money. She's the overseer, if you will, signed by Department of DES. She also works for and controls part of the money under the what we call the state revolving fund, or the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is more accurately. And because this project was deemed to have good stormwater infrastructure planning component, i.e. looking to clean up the river and help us clean up the river, it rated number 3 on their list, and therefore came out this amount of $280. So to get this, a number of things have to happen. I also put together a letter dated the 19th, which is would ask you to sign and approve, asking, as Mr. Saunders put out that night, that the town requests that we waive what's known as the Qualified Professional Engineer Selection Process, commonly called QP. Yeah, what's it called? QBS.
Mm-hmm.
And, QBS, Quality-Based Selection, thank you. And so I formatted that letter. Speaking to Deborah, she didn't see a problem with it. She understood the reasons why you don't want to change jockeys mid-race, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Also, given the amount of work that's out there, you wouldn't be able to find a jockey to make it the rest of the way around the track, and she understands that. So that letter's in place, and what also needs to happen is the warrant article is going to need to be amended on the floor on the 5th, because I still don't have the legal wording. And Deborah warned me that the document, the warrant article actually has to say, has to mention the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, and has to state loan portion and principal forgiveness, $280,000. The town attorney is working on that, but I won't have that for what I'm about to ask you to sign or agree to. So that wording will have to be inserted at the deliberative session. Spoke to Humphrey, he knows it doesn't change the intent of the article at all. It would just, if you will, reduce the fiscal impact, the tax burden to the town. So fine, let it go forward. We'll handle it at the floor on the 5th. If he feels, his board feels that, you know, some of them are now inclined to support the project, they would just re-vote at that time, and the official warrant that would then get put into the ballots would reflect their vote. So Pat is working, has been working with Mr. Saunders at Underwood Engineers, and they've come up with a new figure for the Silver Street portion alone, and it is $611,000 even. And that does have a contingency dollar. I don't have a printout for that for you because he literally got it as he was driving down here for this meeting. So there again, we can do one of two things when we get to the discussion about the warrant articles in detail. You can make a motion to change it down to the 611 from the 781, or we can do that at the floor on the 5th. Pat's more comfortable if we do it tonight.
Okay.
And that would require the budget committee to re-vote at the end of the deliberative session on that particular article.
So,
So, this has been moving fast.
Well, this is great news.
It is, it really
Great
is.
news.
Right.
Thank you.
so it was originally, Pat, it was 781.
81, right.
So if it's gonna be moved down to 611, what are we removing from the project?
We remove, don't forget, now that you've split it up, it's gonna cost you more money per phase, because now you got mobilization twice instead of one, so you're adding a bunch of different costs to the project. But the Dawson Street Phase 2, if you was to choose Dawson Street, would come in at 325. But that doesn't reach our 500 threshold to go after the money that the state has for us.
Yeah, the 280?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 611 is for the Silver Street, and after we had conversation about what we should do first, we need all the granite in Silver Street to put into Dawson Street, to keep that old granite look on the main drag. Plus, Silver Street is the biggest, has the biggest drainage problem, because at the One Rod Road section up by the end of Steeple Street, right now, all that water's coming down and going to 28 Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal on Silver Street is to collect that water at One Rod Road and Steeple Street and bring that down Silver Street and dump it directly in to the river that way, instead of going all the way around Steeple Street and down through everybody's yard and into, I mean, you're still gonna have drainage on Dawson Street down through, 28 Dawson, but you're gonna eliminate some of that runoff from the top of Silver Street and up on the power lines, where all that water comes down from. So we're kind of dividing that up, so it's not all pushed in one direction. So, my original thought was, when I spoke with Robert and Chris and I had this conversation, I was gonna target, or looking at targeting the 500,000 mark, so that qualifies us to go after that money. And if we get, forgiven, or if we get a grant of 280 and we get possibly forgiven the rest of it, I mean, they're talking about that, they haven't done that yet, but that's also a possibility. We could end up with a gift of $500,000 to do this project. Am I correct, Chris, in that?
Yeah and no, excepting you can't spend more than $500,000 on the project in its entirety because you haven't asked to raise and appropriate. It's that double-edged sword that unless you raise and appropriate, irregardless of whether you're given the money, the full 611, unless you use the 611, you can't build beyond the 500. You've You've spent more than the voters authorized you to raise, appropriate, and accept. That's the sad part. At least that's my understanding from a perspective of the wording of the warrant article. In reality, you're right, we do that all the time. We could take 50,000 from your paving budget. We could take, at the end of the year, unassigned fund balance, because it's a standing contract, and put money to that. Yes, you could do that. But for the purposes of the warrant article, I'm cautioning you to cover ourselves, say the 611. Because the other
I
thing
don't
isn't
disagree with that.
guaranteed.
I mean, I'm trying to get it
Right,
at a level where it's gonna be acceptable to the voters. I mean,
right. But I
611
can't,
is a little higher than
Right.
what I was expecting, but, I mean, that's where it comes in at, and we all know that inflation's still going up, and if fuel continues to go up,
Mhm.
this number could rise in a year.
Mhm.
But that's what we have for information. And there is like Chris had just mentioned, if we ask for the 611, possibly 500 of that will be forgiven. At least 280 is gonna be forgiven.
at least 280 is gonna be forgiven. Right.
Right. And that will be, the 280, that'll be all worded in the warrant article.
Correct.
So if we do raise and appropriate the 611, in the warrant article, the 280. Now, what do we have in the ARPA funds right now?
I haven't gone and done an up-to-date spreadsheet on that in the last 30 days. To be honest with you, of all the money that you were gonna get, and you were gonna get like 430,000,
Mm.
the only money that you've committed to is the 25,000 that is out the gate. You've stated it on 2 different occasions, $25,000 for the Sam Plummer Road conservation. The rest of it still sits in there, and we haven't received the other half of the check yet. So I'm not rushing to spend money I don't have in our check.
And when are we supposed to receive those funds?
Good question. My wife works for a restaurant. She applied for those, all the COVID money a year ago. They just received their checks last week.
Because
So that's a crystal ball
how much
question.
was the first check we got?
210, 230, somewhere in there. It was like, wasn't exactly half, but it was close to half.
So,
You got a question?
Oh, yes.
Chris, was that reimbursement, or was that just an upfront check that we could?
ARPA?
Yeah.
It wasn't a reimbursement
So
for
that's
anything.
separate from the reimbursement
It's,
stuff at the
the Americans with, you have to spend it on
a list of stuff.
things that you normally would spend it on.
mhm.
I mean, paving, salaries, whatever. But each community has different needs, and so it's up to each community respectively to do. For instance, the schools got a check, they spent theirs on salaries.
Because we could, because we're still gonna get, down the road, we're still gonna get, another 200 and something thousand dollars. We've used 25 out of the 210, brings it down to, I don't know,
Now, here's a weird
195.
idea.
what's it?
195.
Yeah.
Here's a weird idea. Take it all out of unassigned fund balance, but I warn you that doing this, that means that next year, next November, when we set the tax rate, you can't give back $720.
Yeah.
You could, let's say you gave in $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance to this project in an effort to ease the tax burden to get the project done. Excellent idea, but you just can't then next year when I recommend to you 500,000 as a tops, you gotta,
Well, I think we should just, for me, so at 195, We're down to 195. If we took 100 and, 40,000, 50,000 for the from the ARPA, we're gonna get another 210. We're gonna get another half of the, and I think, we should apply that to, this warrant article, and brings it down to, it's just, it's gonna lessen the tax burden one way or another. I just think that it's probably the right thing to do. I know,
Keep in
this.
mind, you also talked about 190 for the new office.
Right, and that's what the second check,
Okay.
because I think that is a very, very important,
You are the fiscal agents.
yeah. This is just, this is a board decision. I'm
Yeah,
just
no.
saying that, this money was given to the town to,
I'm more comfortable with the unassigned fund balance. And I'll tell you why, because we have it in the bank, literally. The other thing is this project's gonna have to be bid. Construction and the actual invoices for this won't occur till August,
Yeah, even later than that.
September. So you'll be pretty far down the road knowing what you're new. Let's see, like this year, there was like 980 left over that went into the unassigned fund balance. So next year, instead of doing 720 or 740 like we did, which is offsetting the tax rate, you can offset the tax rate right here in the article. Just close the door, but you just can't do it again in November. This is a one-time dipping of the ladle. Because I like that's me personally, okay? I like dipping into the account where I know I have the money in. not the-
well, we know we
Yeah,
have this
well-
money,
Mhm.
right?
And you can always use the ARPA money if you really want to get it to offset property taxes in November. If you really decide that.
I just think, we've never really used the fund balance for anything like that in my tenure. And,
No, it's just laying out as an option.
yeah.
So my understanding is we're it's at 611. The
Yeah.
280 would be the accepted, what's already accepted for that ARPA.
The grant.
Brings it down to 331.
Mhm.
You're recommending 150 from the COVID relief,
Mhm.
which would bring down 181.
Yeah, that's like, that's half of what we asked
Yeah, no,
last year
I
to,
think that's,
to,
I think it's
to
good.
keep moving the
mean-
project.
And we could always, if that was the decision to move the building, again, we could probably go to the unassigned fund balance for that, couldn't we? Just in reverse?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we still have,
But we know we have the 150, we know we're getting the 280,
we still have
and it
another,
brings it down to 181.
I'm gonna see if I can do a quick calculation.
Which will be what for taxes?
New phone.
I know, I got a new phone too, it was fun.
Um,
Already wants to do an update.
I
I
just
didn't
walked
walk
out of the store.
when I wanted to. What did you think, what do you think, Matt?
No matter which route we go, we can use the ARPA money either way. Like Chris said, we can either use it to pay for it now, or put towards it now, or we can use the ARPA money to offset the tax rate next year, so. I say we just use the revolving, or the unassigned fund balance, and then go from there.
Just what, the only thing that scares me using the fund balance is, it's really there for a I mean, and this isn't a really, it is a catastrophic, you know,
Yeah, but having
situation, because, you
having
know,
been through that, I'll tell you how the Department of Revenue Administration feels about that. You have to have zero money, zero, before in an annual year. For instance, my sewer main broke under the marsh. I'm down to one sewer main that's been in the ground for 30 years, which I don't have any faith in at all. The whole beach economy runs through that one pump station and that one line. We called. We've got $15 million in unassigned fund balance. We want to use $3 million of it to award this contract and to get this done. Nope, can't do it. Two ways. You have to have a special town meeting.
mhm.
You have to go to court to get the approval to have a special town meeting, or basically declare bankruptcy. Those are the only two options. So it's a myth that your unassigned fund balance can be utilized by the town at any time during the year. It cannot. Only two times. Here, where you're setting warrant articles, and when you set the tax rate. Those are the only two times you can tap that amount of money, period.
And so-
And because it was over $1 million, and in my case, that would have required a town meeting vote. So we went through the whole process. It was, even though we were talking, this was like May, we would have had that new meeting and had a decision 2 weeks before the regular town meeting in March. That's how the state legislature in there, Mr. Bailey's left, has passed enough rules and steps that it's not an easy process by any stretch of the
Yeah.
imagination.
The only thing I'm worried about is using the unassigned fund balance. And I'll agree with you, Matt. If that's the route we gotta go, we'll do it. But the only thing that scares me about using it is, it's more likely, if it's gonna pass, it would be more likely to pass with using the ARPA money, because people are already saying that we've been taxed and we've already, that's, you know,
You're giving them back their money.
yeah.
Right.
I just think that we'd have a better chance of,
Now,
Not-
there's some other stop gaps. This isn't like if, let's say the voters approve this, and then, it gets designed, final proof from the state, you go out to bid. You still have to vote to award the contract. And you can look at your financial situation then and ask yourself if you can really afford this. Or afford to do it now, or do you delay it? You know what I'm saying? Or do you apply, your other check came in? There are other options. It isn't like it's the horse is out of the gate, another racing analogy. There are other checks and balances in this process. You still have to go to bid on this project. You still have to award.
so either way, wherever we take the $150, what's it bring it down to?
181.
181. What's the
Come on.
tax impact?
It was just here. Why do I have to do that?
That's like what?
I'm trying to think of what we had already that's similar. I think it was, what did we say, it was,
Wasn't last year? It was
25?
last year.
It was 3 something last year.
It was 3 something, right? What was the warrant article last year, Pat? How much?
Be 36 cents per thousand
365.
on the tax rate.
How much?
36 cents. You've gone from $1.56 down to 36 cents. Between this clean water grant money and that money, you've brought it down to 36 cents.
And do you know what that total is of the unassigned fund balance after everything? Do we have an idea?
Let's see, you took out 750, but 980 went in, so you're plus 230. Heck, you haven't even dipped back below the line you were before.
Okay.
You know, and that's depending upon whether or not all these fly or die. And there again, we don't take this money out till December 31 of the very last week of 2022. When we know what it's gonna get reimbursed with. In other words, by the time we get around to paying for this, we're already gonna know, are we at 80% of spend of our budget, 90% of our spend of budget? We're gonna know what we're dealing with for reserves, which give you more comfort for laying out the contract.
And do we have a deadline to use that COVID relief money?
Like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And there's like
So
an
it's not like
accounting.
within the next year.
I know online there's you have to respond back to them within 6 months, this is what we've used it for, after a year, what we've used it for, and then 2 years later, what you've used it for.
Okay.
And that's all just so that they can say, this is what it went for. But other than that, there's no deadline.
Okay.
So really, thanks.
Good night,
Thank
Nicholas.
you.
So really, what it boils down to is where we're gonna take the money.
Right.
I mean, maybe we should, if we're gonna use if we can only use, we can only use it twice a year, and this is the second time. How much money do we have in there, Chris? Like a couple million? Maybe we should,
We're at like, I forget what that report said. We're supposed to stay at 8% or 5% is the minimum that they recommend. We were at 13%.
it's like,
So
yeah.
you've almost got twice in there what they recommend.
Some,
You're not just floating. You're in a good position.
well, maybe we should use a couple 100,000 then, if we can only use it a one-time shot, and this is our one time.
Well, your second shot is.
And, keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we get the 500,000 back from we got the 280 anyways, but maybe we can get, the 500 forgiven, and, we'll be in a good place, but, either way, if we use it now or we use it to buy the tax rate down, it's still we're still buying the tax rate down one way or another, however you look at it. So,
And we can use that, if we had to, we can use that COVID relief.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the tax, to
Yep.
bring it down. Okay. So, I guess we would go with the unassigned fund balance for that. You're recommending 200, or do you want to stay at the 150 and leave it at the total of 181 to be taxed?
I say go 200, and when we get our second check back from the ARPA, we take that check, we put it back to the fund balance, and, so we can, next year, continue to buy the tax rate down if need be, so, and when we'll still have enough money, if, we wanna look at the new building, so if we use 200, then we're only gonna, ask the taxpayers really to appropriate 131,000,
Mm-hmm.
and
And what would that be? What would be the difference? 36 cents,
6 cents. Yeah.
6 cents?
Sorry, it's a nickel per 25,000. So it's a penny per thousand. So. Would you say 100 and what?
131.
It's 26 cents. Yeah.
26 cents. So, I mean, this is a very important project,
Absolutely.
and,
Yep.
you know, people's basements are getting washed away. I mean, so we need to continue getting this, you know, moving this project forward. I know it's tough, but it's not gonna go away. So, now by extending this, are we thinking 4 phases, Pat, or are
Well,
we?
right now, the way it's split up, it would be 4 phases.
Okay.
But subject to change, I mean, I guess it's gonna depend on, you know, support and funding in the future.
Right.
Um,
Hey, you never know. I mean, maybe next year there'll be even more
This
grants.
is probably the biggest part of the project left. But if, the other thing that we need to think about doing if we're gonna continue with the phases is we're gonna have to start negotiating with DOT on the land where we're proposing to change the intersection. That hasn't been done yet,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know when that's gonna be. But if we're serious about it, we really need to get started probably this year,
Mm-hmm.
at least getting that ball rolling.
Well, I know the current engineer is all for it, so at least he's in our.
Well, DOT owns a lot of that land, so that's where the problem's gonna be. I mean, they actually even own the end of Dawson Street, all the way up to the sidewalk in that area, and
Mhm.
that's all state right away, so.
Would the state be able to contribute?
Excuse me?
Would the state be able to contribute?
Will they be able to contribute?
Yeah, the
They'll probably
funding.
just let us do the work.
Yeah.
I don't see any.
Thank
bad
you.
numbers.
I'm just
Thank-
asking
thanks
if
for
it's
helping us
their
out.
land, yeah.
Well, there is a
Sure, go ahead,
state.
spend your
There
money,
is.
Milton.
There
That's
is
what I'm saying.
Well, there is a state fund that's put aside for projects like this. Chris, you know about it.
Yeah.
I just don't know, you know, where we would fall in to getting any help. But there is state
Okay,
monies
well, just
for-
something, you never
for
know.
this, so that's something we can look into as, you know, we move forward. So. All right, I'll make a motion. Is it, so do we wanna go with that? 200?
Yep, do it.
I'll make a motion, to, use 200,000, out of the fund balance towards the Dawson Street drainage project. For next year, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And so are we gonna
Are you
reduce?
make that 611,000, is that what you're gonna put on that warrant article?
Yes, that's what I was just,
I didn't hear it, so.
well,
Yeah.
that's the next part I was gonna ask. Do we
Okay.
want to make that change to the 611?
Yeah, so you just made a motion basically to use 200,000 from the unassigned fund balance. Now, what I'd ask you to do is go back and revise, or at least allow me to edit Article 6 for Dawson Street. So, let me see if I can paraphrase a motion. That we're gonna change the cost of the project from $781,000 to only $611,000. We're going to, add in the language that to appropriate 200,000 from the unassigned fund balance with no amount to be raised by, this portion not raised by taxation. And then what has to be inserted, and I still don't have the language, would be the 280,000 ARPA money. I'll take a swing at it, but it would have to still be reviewed by legal.
Do we need to vote on the change?
Yeah,
from
so
the-
you really just need to vote on
At least do that,
the
and then we can
change.
always take care of the rest
We-
at the delivery.
Right, I can take care of the total number, the 611 and the 280, or sorry, 200,000 from the UFB. Beyond that, we'd have to wait for the deliberative session to get the exact word for the ARP money.
So motion, so said,
Okay.
Chris, and so we're gonna move the 781 down to 611, And, we're gonna use the 200,000 from the fund balance, and the 280, he's gonna get the wording. But that'll be the new,
Okay.
So so it brings it down to 411 before that 280 hits.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there's the 3. Yep, perfect. Okay.
So really, we'll have to, and this is just conversation really quick, is we're gonna have to come up, the taxpayers are gonna have to come up with 131,000 to continue moving this project forward, which I think is phenomenal,
Yep.
really. So,
Thank you for working on that, Pat.
What's that?
I said thank you for working on
You're
that,
welcome.
and thank you for moving on your side, Chris.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no, it has been multiple people's efforts
Yes.
over the last week, flurry of phone
They
calls and
surprised
emails.
me.
The other, I put this on the agenda because the other article that I do not have a vote from the board on is the last article, the voting and counting methods that was submitted by petition. I don't show or reflect on this warrant, how the board wants to, show, are they in favor of it, and,
Well,
in other words, take a vote, because people
Well,
would
did
want
we
to.
get any more information on it? Cause I don't remember exactly what we were looking for. I remember the last meeting
So,
we were looking for more
yeah.
information.
I did send it, after we met the last time, I did send it off to legal, of course, with all the other warrant articles, and I said, but I asked her, this is the latest addition, can you particularly look at this one? And she came back with two things. One, it is definitely legal. The voters can say how, whether we can use the machines or not use the machines. That is definitely within their purview. So it is totally legal and enforceable. Then the question came up from the school side, does that mean the school can't use the ballot machines? The school's attorney has ruled this has no impact on the school, that the school can and would use the ballot machines for their portion of the election. So all the school ballots would go through there. But any pure town, or I guess this also means federal, would all be hand counted. So those are the two opinions that have been rendered, legal opinions.
I'm all for elections being, accountable. I want them to be transparent, and I want the truth at the end of every election. Why wouldn't any of us, or,
Can I actually comment on this one?
Mr. Chair.
So I can tell you from my experience, I've tested these machines, both machines, for the last 10 years. More than one election.
I've done
per
it
year.
with you.
So we're talking like at least 20 times. It has never, ever been off on the sample ballots that we run. Like, the state gives me our ballots ahead of time. They send me to the machine, it's all pre-programmed. I mark the ballots. The machine reads the ballots and has been spot on 10 years. I'm just letting you know.
Thank you.
It's, for me, it's human errors that become questionable.
Mhm.
It's not the machines.
Yeah, when we have to hand the absentee ballots that are, the machine wouldn't read because they were folded 51 times.
Sure. The machine's smart enough to take it out and say.
Or the
"Check,
ones
check."
that we've had a number of people write political dissertations, for lack of a more correct word.
Well, either way, this is
And
going.
therefore, those get hand counted,
Yeah.
so. And that's always like when It's Travis Corvo,
Mm-hmm.
is that his last name?
Mm-hmm.
He's requested a recount probably 3 times on the school side, at least twice that I recall. And in both instances, the machine was perfect compared to the hand-counted ballots, because we didn't, on the recount, we don't just pass them through the machine. We literally do hand count them. And it's like one person counts 25 of them and says 25 yeas. 4 people in a row count, and then that's how we certify that it's done. And, but it was always those the ones that had too much ink on them, that they put an X through both Travis's name and whoever he was running against, and then wrote yes next to one of the names. And was it close enough to his opponent or him? And that's a judgment that the 5 of us or 6 of us that did the count would make in the presence of Travis. And in like most instances, what happened, he'd win one of the hand counts and he'd lose one of the hand counts. And in the end, it didn't come up one or the other. Didn't really modify it. I mean, I, as the moderator, probably understand better why, you'd want to do this. And especially, I asked Larry after the last meeting, I said, it would strike me, Larry, you'd be very much in favor of this, because he was one of the ones early on questioned the legitimacy of the machine. Could it be corrupted? Could somebody with the magic wand of information pass by close to the machine and all that? And that's all been proven no. And so I said, so what do you, he said he wouldn't be in favor of the article because he understood how long it was going to take to count, let's say, nationally, 3,000 votes, if that's how many. I think we ran close to that at the last major federal primary. So he understood the work, but he also understood that the machine, while he's not a fan of that kind of technology, is good technology in this particular case. The other thing that I, and I think a lot of the concern, having, watched the news, is that, how did if an election were to be stolen, there's a multitude of electronic information floating around, and all comes in, let's say it comes into Election Central, wherever that is in Washington, D.C., the people that have to certify the election. It all gets there by computer. So, I mean, if at the end of the night Michelle calls in and says, we have 1,500 votes for candidate X and 1,200 for candidate Y, person at the state goes, okay, thanks, and logs it in, done. It's back into a computer. What have we gained?
Once it leaves Milton.
When it leaves
we can't
Milton,
control
right,
that.
it's back into a computer
But I
system.
can guarantee you that the machines are accurate.
But at this point, the ballot is it's clear. It's not poorly worded. It's not, the only other thing that I've heard someone say is, but this would have to occur at the deliberative session, is insert the words at the discretion of the moderator. But I'm not sure that's what the original people would have intended.
Well, for me personally, either way, this is going on. Of course, this is going on the
Oh,
ballot.
it's going on the ballot. Yeah.
So I mean, of course, I want a fair election. I mean, period. But I just don't think this doesn't give us that much time. I mean, this is gonna cost a lot of money, and this is gonna take more people, and
Well, the other
we don't
thing-
have volunteers now.
The other thing to think about is if the count goes from, let's say polls close at 7, it starts at 8. Plan on the 3 of you being there till midnight or 1 a.m.
Past that.
to seal
Oh.
the boxes,
Yeah.
because it's your 3 signatures to seal these boxes. it's not just mine and just hers.
Right.
We're there at 11
You-
now.
You'd have to be there you literally have to be there the whole night.
Some elections, I don't get home until almost midnight, so I can just imagine with a hand count, you're talking in the next morning, that's where your mistakes are gonna happen, people are gonna be tired.
Mm. I mean, for me, I think we need a little bit of time on this for my vote to say yes. I mean, either way, it's going on to the ballot anyways, and hey, I'm all for fair elections. I just think, we don't have the resources and we don't have the revenue to hand count ballots. I mean, we can't even get people to go to a fire, never mind count a ballot. So, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just,
Well, I will say that I do know there's 30 some odd towns and cities that have this on their ballot. I think there was a real big concern over the 2020 election, and that's where this is coming from. And I think that as far as volunteers, I think you'd get volunteers because it's that important.
Christ, well, excuse me, I mean, hell, I'd like them now.
Yeah.
We don't get volunteers. We had one volunteer that helped us, and God bless him, Bob Yeager. I mean, he's passed away. That's the only guy that, I mean, there might have been a few here and there, but he always, Bob Schute's son stays and helps. But other than that, I don't know too many volunteers that stay and help us. I'm just
Mr.
throwing that
Long.
out there.
Mr. Long regularly does too.
Yeah,
He's the
yeah,
third
yeah.
person that always chimed in.
But I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just, because I want transparency, and I don't want false elections. That's not who I am. I just don't think that we could get. I don't want to be up till the next day, personally. I mean, we've never had a problem with these machines, and I've been with her testing them.
Nobody's saying that there's a problem
So-
with the people in the town, because I know that was a thing, that's something that Larry had mentioned. That's not where this is coming from. Okay, there has been proof in other cities and towns where there was miscounting through the machines, and this
Mhm.
is where it's coming from. And it has nothing to do with Milton or the people working in Milton. It's just the concept that something has been happening.
Right.
And so this is just, if this is something, it's even at the legislative level. So it can even come down through the legislative level. So,
Right. No, I mean, I totally agree. I just, and you know what?
and I mean, we don't have to have a vote on it anyway, because it is a petition warrant article. It could just be stated the way that it is, and,
sure.
I mean, if it passes and we have to count them, I guess I signed up for it, and I'll do it.
And that just
but
tells you
it's
where the
just-
people are at. And if they don't care and they don't want to, then that tells you also they don't care. So the people will have to make that decision. But I don't think we'll have a problem getting volunteers.
So, am I hearing correctly
Okay,
that basically
I'll
you
go with
don't
you.
wanna take a vote on your position on this? and you
We
just-
can, but I'm
No,
just saying
you
if
don't have to.
nobody's comfortable with it.
No, you don't have to. It
We
just,
don't,
yeah,
it's one way or the other. We don't have to, is what I'm
Right.
saying, but
right.
we
But
can.
It's not required either way.
Okay.
These people know where I stand.
So with that, I will
I
be
mean, I-
asking you to, I've gotta get this warrant finalized and signed, so I'll be editing it tomorrow morning. I'll be sending you a text message, can you come by individually and sign the warrant? And,
Yes.
And then I can get it uploaded to the state website, and we can get the voter's guide, prepare that. Well, no, voter's guide we'll do after we'd finish after the 5th, but I've gotta get it rolling for the 5th. In matter of fact, by law, it has to be posted by the 31st. Humphrey needs it tomorrow.
Right, we have
Yeah.
a budget committee meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right.
Mhm.
That's why he asked me to. So that's where I'll be at. With respect to that, if Madam Chair, you can entertain it.
Yes.
Budget Committee also needs the MS 737 that I joked about 2 weeks ago. What that is the proposed budget. It has to be signed, every one of these copies has to be signed originally. We did all the data entry over the last 4 or 5 days, any last expenditures, revenues, and what the proposed budget was. So there's the MS 737. It was preliminary uploaded to the state. They acknowledged receipt of it. They're waiting for the signed copy. And at the same time, she came back with this, also to set what the default budget is, and she's given me 5 copies of that to have you all individually sign.
Okay. So
And
this-
that's the same thing that the budget committee approved. the
That's
same
that
numbers.
one, and we'll
Yeah.
start the
Yeah.
process, yeah.
Paper.
We're doing this right on this.
Yep.
You too.
Yeah. I wonder why I was writing on Selectmen. That's why you cheated on me.
Well, you only put a name for your last names,
True.
or for your signature, I should say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. next item of business.
Okay. I have here other business that may come before the board.
That's actually the minutes, the first of the
The
minutes.
minutes,
There's
okay, so
nothing
no
else.
other business. All right, so approval of minutes, public minutes, is that
You have a non-public for
Non-public.
January 3rd
Okay.
first.
the one time I don't mention non-public and we have the non-public?
Mhm.
I can't remember.
I'll make a motion to accept the non-public January 3rd, 2022 as written.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I reviewed them, I should have just remembered.
Interesting thing to note with the new law that came out at the end of the year, and that is, so I have a spreadsheet that I now have to update and make available to the public saying when non-public minutes were approved, when they were posted, if they were sealed, when they were sealed to, if they were sealed, and what they're relative to. So you'll notice on a lot of these now, it'll say the date, and then I just use a 1 or 2 word topic, and this one says Macaulay. So if people are looking for them, that's how they're cataloged. And if the lower left-hand corner of the bulletin board out there, you'll see the latest and greatest spreadsheet from last week. I'll be updating it every Tuesday after your meetings when I repost minutes. Next is January 3rd and January 10th of
Are you all set, you guys, with these?
Yes.
our public meetings.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'll make a motion to accept January 3rd, 2020 and January 10th, 2022. 2022 and 2022, as written. Both,
Here's the signature sheet.
Oh, yeah. Did you second it? or somebody?
Oh, did I
Second.
second? I was, sorry.
No
All
worries.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right, so public comments pertaining to topics previously discussed. Okay, and.
Any comments from the public? Pat? No?
I'm here for a non-public.
Oh, I know you
Just
are.
wants to get going.
Sorry.
And expenditure report, a revised end of the year expenditure report has been distributed, which we received, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's literally hot off the press at 5:30, so. Again, just in summation, without, 88.196% of the budget for 2021 was expended.
Okay. All right, thank you. And anything from the town administrator?
You know, I had some nice notes, I sent them to you, and I didn't keep a copy for myself. I do know that one of them
It's
was
in there somewhere.
that our
It's down at the
minutes,
bottom.
yeah, our next meeting is always, try and say that, it's February 7th.
Fifth. Deliberative
Well,
session.
right, the 5th is the deliberative session, correct?
That's what it says. You
And
wrote it.
then, yeah, see,
Don't shoot the messenger, I'm just reading what you wrote.
I know.
At the
And-
new gym.
And then, the following that is the 7th. Other than that, I remember what I wrote to you.
Former town-owned parcel of 254 Governors Road has been removed.
Yep.
Has removed the old structure, applied for building permit, getting septic system designed.
Thank you. And I did find out today that 47 Steeple, the one that burned during the winter,
Yes,
we pushed the guy to get it demoed.
right.
He has sold that piece of property to an investment group out of Rochester, so, I wouldn't be, so, it's nice to see, though, that,
Things are moving.
right, things are
Yeah.
moving, they're moving in the right direction, that
Mhm.
we're not adding more derelict properties, people are actually going forward with those sort of things, so.
Do you know what's going on, so are you all set with Chris's?
I have a assessing interview scheduled with someone for Friday, and the other person is, I was awaiting an email response. I gave her 10 different times when to pick. So hopefully I'll be coming back to you early February with a recommendation. Michelle, if she's available, Brittany, Suzanne, and myself will be conducting the interviews so that they can get one's got heavy banking experience and another one's human resources / IT / a little of everything else. So we're not finding really anyone that has pure assessing background. They're all tied up or hired up. So
Okay,
that's what we've got so far.
all right, Selectmen Comments?
Yeah, all right, well, thank you. Well, we're just talking about this. What's going on with Charles Street? With that, the building that's...
It hasn't moved forward.
Yeah,
I literally got to find the bandwidth to start the process to raise, i.e. rip down that structure and the one on White Mountain Highway. So what that will involve is Ron from Always Wrecking came down and looked at those two structures back on around the 13th.
Which one on White Mountain Highway?
Dingling?
Dingling.
Ah, okay,
Yeah,
just checking.
not the one next to Cumberland Farms.
Oh, yeah, no,
That'd
that's
be a
actually.
That'd be a
that
mistake.
looks
Yeah, that one's moved somewhere.
Yeah, no.
yeah.
So
I-
I
and
never did.
I was actually thinking you were talking about the blue house on the ridge. So, we don't,
no, not yet.
yeah,
No, so those two in particular, he came down, gave me he had contacted me months ago, give me a price. So I'll be coming back to the board with a recommendation. Based on this price, is this something you want to go forward with? I.e., the first step would to be notify both of these people by certified mail. You have X number of days to contact us. It's like a 30-day notice. We then have to have a public hearing in this room to give anyone interested parties to, and once you have those two things accomplished, you would then go see a judge to get an administrative order to tear down the structure, similar to what we did to, I believe, a Jacobs
Yeah.
property up on the ridge.
Yep.
So it is not, we've been through this process
Mhm.
before. Then you'd have to contract with somebody in a wrecking service. There's also gonna be a hefty disposal, I would imagine,
Hmm.
cost of the contents. And then what we end up doing, because we're allowed to do it by the court, is we have the right to lien their property. And not just this property, it's the property that they, including the property they reside in currently. So my plan is if I find they own 4 properties, 1 they live in, 3 they own, I'm gonna lien them all,
Now that is for until they pay it back.
until they have to pay it back.
no, I'd like to get,
Especially the lien would then prevent them from doing,
right,
Anything.
well, they wouldn't be able to sell it.
reselling them,
Right.
or getting a bank loan, or whatever.
Right. I would like to put the demolition out to bid, though, really.
Okay, and that's fine, I just, not knowing, I was just trying to get,
Yeah,
trying to
no,
get a handle of
that's-
what are we talking about?
Sure,
A
no,
$50 item, or
Yeah, I mean,
$5,000.
it's gonna take time to get all this done anyways.
Right.
Clearly, so, yeah, put it out to bid.
Yep.
With whoever wants to apply to it. I know I have a feeling there's gonna be at least 2 guys right here in Milton that are gonna bid on it.
Yeah,
Sure.
and there's like the big companies like Danley Demo, I mean, maybe or maybe not, that'd probably be a 3-hour demo for them,
Right.
yeah, no,
but,
I just think, yeah, we got to put it out to bid.
Yeah, so, no, I showed Claudine last week my to-do list, and it's on there, it's just number items 14 and 15, or 15 through 25, so, because there's multiple steps to it, so,
Okay,
alright, but it is on the top of my
all right. And
to-do
then,
list.
moving forward next year, we'll continue on.
We are gonna
Uh,
tax sale properties more
yeah.
towards the spring.
Yeah.
Because there again, I have to do research the prior owners, then notify them, give them 30 days to buy back. If they don't, then we advertise for sale, we go through the same process. I do have 2 properties that I probably will be coming to you and saying, these are landlocked parcels. I think our best interest is to deed them to an interested abutter. One of them is on Ford Farm Road is totally surrounded by one abutter. The other one on Jug Hill Road it's a 2-acre lot, and the person next door has expressed interest. They own, let's say 5 acres, 6 acres. They just want to merge it. It's a lot that has, I don't know how, I'll have to do some more research. I don't know how it got created, but it's definitely landlocked. There's no clear way into the property, I'll put it that way. So that's why whoever bought it didn't pay the taxes on it. And you know, the same thing exists on parcels up on Thurston Road. There's no.
I mean, either way, the town is gonna win,
Yes,
you know, because they're gonna pay taxes on.
right. That's I think the bigger thing is to get them.
Yeah.
And I did have one call last week, a person who was a bidder on the first. She wanted to come to the board and express her displeasure that while she's a neighbor, she wasn't able to get the property, because we did go with a higher bidder, because we did put down there that we were interested in what the person was gonna do with the piece of property. And, was upset that we'd done that. Right, said, and this is the Gold Street property.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could clean the thing up in 4 hours with a roll-off container. It's not what I'd call a huge pile of demo. It's an old shed, 8x10 shed that fell in on itself. Big deal. I mean, it's got moss and trees growing up through it. I had a hard time finding it myself. So, I mean, it's not like that one was like the 254 road parcel, Governor's Road parcel, that had a lot of cleanup to do on it and a building to demo. This is, so the person that bought the Gold Street parcel has a real estate sign on it. They're just remarketing it at this time. So,
Okay.
but I do know
That's
that
to each their
one
own.
party was displeased.
I apologize.
But their bid was 10,000 lower than the bid we awarded to.
Mhm. Right. So my other comment was, and I'm glad Pat's here, because I got a few phone calls about being able to get sand after a storm, you know, residents. So I listened to them, and I said, all right, I was gonna bring it tonight to talk about it, and you were here, and I'm like, perfect. So, like I know, and I'm just using Barrington because I work there, but on the outside of our gates in Barrington, we have a little shed that we put sand in for the residents to come and get. So 2 of these residents, their complaint was, and I can understand, they work after hours of when you guys go home. And so I was just, you know, hopefully we can come up with some sort of resolution on how, you know, a taxpayer can get a bucket of sand, you know, after they get home from work. So, I don't know, maybe we can try to figure out something.
We're open 7 days a week, so.
No, I know, but like I said, you know, we're pretty fortunate to be able to work till 3:30, but unfortunately, a lot of people, you know, don't have that luxury. And so I was just, I'm bringing it to your attention that this was, you know, it was brought to my attention, and I said, all right, well, you know, I'll talk about it and see if we can maybe come up with some sort of something.
I don't know where you put it.
I know, well, unfortunately, it's harder there because there's no room out beside the gate. I totally understand that. I was thinking maybe,
Calls, people come in, a lot of them come in and they just grab a bunch of buckets and take it, so they've planned ahead, and some come in that never come in hardly, and just get it when they need it, so. I don't know, it's hard, but I mean, it is available from, you know, pretty much 6 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock, even during this construction, the gate's been open till 4 or 5 o'clock at night, so. Hasn't been closed
No,
down.
I was just thinking maybe on one of our properties, maybe even down at the,
You can put a temporary one out here in the parking lot, there's enough room. Put it in the corner of the parking lot by the utility pole.
yeah, or, I mean,
Even if it's just a, you know, a load of sand, it's just,
yeah,
let's, you know, right now, all of his dump trucks have, spreaders, sanders in the back of them, so, I mean,
well,
it's
no,
difficult.
his don't.
Huh?
His his are unibodies.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not regular Sanders. But I was just, you know, I told these people that I'd bring it to, and maybe we could, you know, pull our thoughts together and just try to figure out how we could.
dump a load of sand in Andy's driveway.
Mm. Yeah, right on my lawn.
This weather, the sand ain't gonna be too available, it's gonna be frozen. You have to put a mix with it.
Yeah,
Mm.
In order to keep it from freezing, and that's why we put that up back at the transfer station.
Yep.
Because it can be available to the residents when they come to the transfer station, and it doesn't freeze, it's got salt in it. We really don't want a lot of people at the sand pile, you know, while we're working.
And you don't track on who comes and gets the buckets, right? Like, how many times they come a year? I could come 5, 6, 7 times a year, right?
No, I don't care.
So, could their neighbors not go get the sand for them?
I don't want to be getting sand for my neighbors.
Hi, Andy.
Oh,
I would, but Jesus, I mean, it's the last thing I want to do is lug. I mean, if it was an elderly neighbor, yeah, of course I'd love to help them, but
Matt has a sander in the
Be-
back of his truck.
the lugging
that
sand.
Yep.
No,
I
I'm
sell
just.
sand too.
I'm just throwing
that's
it. I'm
there,
just
yeah.
throwing it out
I
there.
thought it, yeah.
That's all. I mean,
No,
if
I
it's something,
understand. I mean, but then if you know, then it's frozen and you're gonna get the call, how come we have to have sand that's all frozen all the time? You know what I mean? So, I understand though, we've gone through this many years, and that's why we came up with what we did at the transfer station. And it seemed to work, I don't get any calls, people come in and say, hey, can I get some?
well, I
sand?"
think unfortunately it was the ice, you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
that,
I mean,
and I think that's really what sparked the
Yeah.
conversation was the ice.
Most people don't even use it most of the time.
I don't like to track it in my house personally,
Yeah, I
so
don't-
that's why.
I have a question. Do you need a transfer pass to go get the sand though? You
They
could just,
have- No,
No.
you could just
You
go
just
around it.
make
I
sure
just
that-
wanted
you
to make
ask
sure.
them if they're a resident, because we've had a lot of contractors from out of town
Right, right.
that were coming in and they were just shoveling as fast as they could in the back of a pickup truck, or even in sanders, the size of Matt's sander. The back of his truck, they'd be standing on a pile shoveling. And we had to put a stop to some of that stuff, because what they were doing is coming in from out of town and getting free sand and charging the residents of Milton to sand their driveway.
Yeah.
So so the selectmen said, okay, we're gonna vote 5-gallon pail per event is actually what the vote was.
Mm-hmm.
That was I think you might
Mhm.
even been selectmen back at that time when that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Because we had like 1,000 yards of sand disappear one year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the town can't afford to put 1,000 yards of sand up for people just to come and take
Right.
Mm-hmm.
at, you know, $14 a ton delivered.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Mm. No, I told him that I would bring it up in my selectmen's comments and see if, you know,
Listen, if the selectmen wanna do something,
And-
tell me where you wanna put it. Well, I'll put it there, but it's gonna have to be, you know, something that they're gonna wanna take. You know, it probably couldn't be straight sand, cause it wouldn't stay thawed enough to be,
Right.
you know, in a small amount, it's
Right.
gonna freeze solid.
right.
Okay. Well, something to think about, how you can do that.
Yeah. And
I do have a couple requests. Well, one, can we make sure that we have signage for the town deliberative? So people know who may not here in the meeting, but if we have it posted, or I don't know if there's another
Yeah, we should have it on the
text
sign.
sign out there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Got
That we
those
could,
fancy road signs now.
well, that's what I'm saying, could we, post a couple, can we check with the chief, cause that's coming up
Mhm.
next
Yeah,
week?
they've been on the, construction project, but
Right,
we can probably get them moved and
yeah,
put
at
one
least
down
one,
here,
and,
or put one someplace, maybe in the transfer station.
perfect, just to start getting that out there, and,
Yeah,
Yep.
maybe
And-
one down there and one in the mills,
and also on the website.
'cause we have 3 of
Okay.
them. Oh,
And to add to that, the last day to receive, registrations for the candidates
Friday,
is
Friday.
Friday.
What
So,
time?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.? Okay, so encouraging our residents to step up and give elections a try. Are we getting some in there?
Not as many as we'd like to see.
Oh boy, we need to see many.
mm.
Okay, so, anything else? Do you have anything to add?
Nope, I'm good.
You're good? Okay, well, I guess, are you all set?
I'm all set.
All right, we're good to go,
I'll
so,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it's 8:25.
Tax non-public first?
Yes, so we're gonna, how do I go about saying this? Move into a non-public meeting,
Yes.
right to RSA 91.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night,
Good night.
Amy.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Claudia, did you made a motion to go in?
I
Yeah.
made a motion
Yeah,
to
I'll
enter
second it.
non-public. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seconded by Andy?
But it doesn't matter who you want to put down. Put me, I don't
Trying to
care.
be accurate on these things.
You gotta shut this off.
Geez, sorry.
Hit those highlighted buttons.